Hey, Steelers Nation. We're back with an exclusive video packed with the latest updates on our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. This way, you'll never miss any exclusive updates or exciting Steelers news. It all started when DK Metcalf, the Seattle Seahawks powerhouse wide receiver known for his explosive plays and larger-than-life presence, decided to speak his mind in an interview that nobody saw coming. Asked about T.J. Watt, the Pittsburgh Steelers' defensive juggernaut, Metcalf didn't hold back. He began with a tone that seemed respectful, even complimentary, but quickly shifted into something that set the entire NFL community buzzing. T.J. is one of the most relentless players I've ever faced, Metcalf said, pausing for effect. But sometimes, man, it's like he crosses that line between playing hard and playing reckless. The moment those words hit social media, the football world exploded. Fans on both sides went wild, debating whether Metcalf was throwing shade or just being brutally honest. Reporters scrambled to interpret his tone. Analysts dissected every syllable, and within hours, the clip had millions of views. It was the kind of raw, unfiltered comment that sports media lives for. Metcalf, usually confident and unapologetic, had just ignited a debate about the fine line between aggression and recklessness in the NFL. And coming from him, a player known for his own intensity, that statement carried a unique weight. Metcalf's comment didn't stop there. He went on, doubling down in a way that only DK could, blending criticism with genuine admiration that made his words hard to categorize. "You can't deny the man's motor," he continued. "He goes 100 miles an hour every snap. But sometimes you look at the tape and wonder if he's trying to make a play or trying to send a message." That sentence hit like a blitz. The suggestion that Watt's play might be more about intimidation than pure football instinct stirred controversy instantly. Steelers fans jumped online defending their superstar, citing his Defensive Player of the Year award and his record-breaking sack numbers as proof that Watt's intensity was simply part of his greatness. But others, especially rival players, quietly nodded, hinting that Metcalf might have a point. The league's most dominant defenders often walk that razor's edge, where ferocity can either win you games or cost you flags. For Metcalf, who's been on the receiving end of many such hits, the comment seemed less like an insult and more like a truth bomb dropped right in the middle of the season's narrative chaos. As the backlash grew, Metcalf clarified his remarks, but not in a way that made things calmer. He took to social media, tweeting, "Nothing but respect for TJ, but respect doesn't mean silence." It was classic DK, bold, unapologetic, and calculated to keep everyone talking. Some interpreted the tweet as a peace offering, while others saw it as gasoline on an already raging fire. Sports pundits spent hours debating what he really meant. Was it a genuine attempt to explain his feelings? Or was Metcalf leaning into the drama, knowing the clip was already dominating every highlight show and podcast? Either way, his decision to double down rather than backtrack added fuel to the story. Even teammates reportedly told him to let it go, but Metcalf seemed to enjoy the spotlight. For him, it wasn't just about what. It was about the culture of competition, the unspoken tension between elite players who live for dominance. When someone like DK Metcalf speaks, the league listens because his words usually come from a place of brutal honesty that cuts through the PR polish most athletes rely on. Behind the scenes, sources close to both camps suggested that Watt himself wasn't thrilled about the comment. Known for his disciplined, no-nonsense demeanor, TJ reportedly brushed it off publicly, saying only that he respects DK as a competitor. But those who know Watt said he took it personally. For a player who prides himself on preparation and professionalism, being called reckless is like a slap in the face. Still, Watt didn't retaliate verbally. Instead, insiders say he quietly circled the Seahawks game on his mental calendar. TJ doesn't talk, one teammate told a reporter. He responded with plays. And that's exactly what fans started to anticipate, a showdown fueled by pride, respect, and a bit of resentment. Metcalf's words may have been a mix of compliment and critique, but in a league built on rivalries, even the slightest spark can light a fire that burns for seasons. What made the whole situation even juicier was the timing. Metcalf's comments came right when the Seahawks were preparing for a crucial stretch of games, and the Steelers were making a push for playoff relevance. Both teams needed focus, not distractions. Yet somehow, this story became unavoidable. Every press conference, every analyst panel, every pre-game segment mentioned the quote. It transcended the field. It became psychological warfare. Fans began creating memes, replaying Watt's hardest hits on loop, pairing them with Metcalf's quote about crossing the line. Others edited clips of Metcalf breaking tackles and captioned them with phrases like, "Look who's talking." It became entertainment, a subplot to the NFL's drama-filled season. But beyond the noise, there was something authentic brewing. An honest conversation about what it means to play at full throttle in a sport where passion and violence are always one step apart. In a way, Metcalf's words touched on a deeper truth about football itself. Every player walks that boundary between aggression and discipline, especially at the highest level. When Metcalf called what reckless, he wasn't just talking about one man. He was challenging the culture that glorifies controlled chaos. Fans love highlight hits and big moments, but few acknowledge the risks and emotions behind them. DK's statement reminded everyone that intensity has consequences, both for the opponent and the player delivering it. Ironically, that same fiery spirit is what defines both men. They're two athletes cut from the same cloth, obsessed with winning, unafraid to provoke, and unwilling to apologize for their passion. So maybe Metcalf's comment wasn't an insult at all. Maybe it was recognition, a fiery acknowledgement of a rival who mirrors his own relentless drive. Still, in the world of sports media, nuance rarely survives. All people heard was one superstar calling out another, and that's the kind of story that never dies quickly. After the storm of headlines and reactions, DK Metcalf finally expanded on his remarks in a follow-up interview that felt more personal, almost reflective. Sitting in front of camera, wearing a calm expression rather than his usual swagger, he explained what he meant in a way that revealed both respect and frustration. When I said reckless, Metcalf clarified, I didn't mean dirty. There's a difference. Reckless means he plays with no fear, like he's willing to give up everything for the play. I respect that, but when you play that way, sometimes people get hurt. Sometimes it's yourself. It was a moment of rare vulnerability from a player known more for his physical dominance than introspection. Fans who expected another fiery quote were surprised to hear something thoughtful, even philosophical. He spoke like a man who had experienced the toll of the game, who had been hit hard and hit back harder, and who understood that greatness often comes with sacrifice. The nuance in his explanation softened the backlash slightly, but the conversation had already taken on a life of its own. Despite the attempt to clarify, not everyone bought the explanation. Critics argued that Metcalf knew exactly what he was doing when he used the word reckless, and that he couldn't walk it back now that the fire had spread. Sports talk shows framed it as a calculated move, a way to stay relevant in the news cycle during a stretch where the Seahawks weren't grabbing headlines. Some accused him of stirring controversy to motivate himself or even his team. Others saw it as a simple case of competitive honesty being blown out of proportion. The debate became more about perception than reality. Was DK Metcalf becoming the NFL's new outspoken voice, a kind of modern-day gladiator unafraid of confrontation? Or was he simply feeding into the entertainment aspect of the sport, knowing every word from a star can be monetized, analyzed, and weaponized? The line between authenticity and performance blurred once again, just as it always does in professional sports. Meanwhile, reports out of Pittsburgh indicated that TJ Watt had no plans to address the situation further. In fact, teammates said he barely mentioned it in the locker room. But they also said something else. He trained harder than ever that week. He's locked in, said one insider. When someone questions his game, he doesn't talk. He just makes sure the next game speaks for him. That silence was almost louder than any statement he could have made. Watt's focus turned the tension into anticipation, and suddenly, everyone circled the upcoming Steelers-Seahawks matchup as must-watch television. Broadcasters hyped it as a grudge game. Social media dubbed it "What versus Metcalf?" Words to warfare. Whether intentional or not, DK had created a storyline straight out of Hollywood. A classic duel between respect and rivalry, between two athletes who refused to play nice when pride was on the line. When game day finally arrived, the tension was thick enough to feel through the screen. Every snap, every stare, every hit carried meaning. Metcalf lined up with extra fire in his eyes, while what prowled the edge like a lion waiting to strike. At one point, after a play where what pressured the quarterback and nearly forced a fumble, cameras caught Metcalf nodding slightly toward him, as if acknowledging the force he talked about. Later, after Metcalf made a tough contested catch, what gave a subtle head tilt, a silent form of acknowledgement. No words were exchanged, but the energy said everything. It wasn't hatred, it was mutual recognition. Two alphas meeting on the field, pushing each other to limits that only they could understand. By the final whistle, both men had played elite football, and the post-game handshake between them felt like the closing scene of a movie. Intense, brief, and unforgettable. Afterward, when reporters swarmed the locker room, Metcalf was asked again about what. This time, his tone carried no controversy, just respect. "He's everything I said he was," DK admitted. "Relentless, fearless, and yeah, sometimes reckless, but that's what makes him great. You can't coach that kind of fire." It was the kind of full-circle moment that tied the story together. The same word that caused the uproar now sounded like a compliment. What, for his part, gave a brief smile in his own press session and said, "He's a competitor. I'll take that as a compliment." And just like that, what started as a feud ended as mutual validation. Two warriors acknowledging the cost and beauty of the game they love. It wasn't about winning an argument anymore. It was about understanding what it means to play with heart. In the end, the DK Metcalf and TJ Watt saga became more than just a headline. It became a reflection of the modern NFL, where passion meets perception and every word echoes louder than every hit. It reminded fans that behind the helmets and highlight reels are men driven by pride, respect, and the desire to be remembered. Metcalf's initial comment may have sounded like criticism, but it sparked a conversation about what separates good players from great ones. The willingness to go all in, even if it looks reckless to the world watching. What embodied that philosophy, and Metcalf recognized it, even if his delivery caused shockwaves. In the end, both players walked away with their reputations intact, maybe even stronger. Because in football, as in life, the greatest respect sometimes comes disguised as a challenge. And sometimes the loudest rivalries are just two competitors speaking the same language at full volume. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Not long after that emotional showdown, whispers began to circulate around NFL circles that the Metcalf, what moment had changed something deeper between them. Insiders claimed that after the game, away from cameras and microphones, the two actually shared a brief conversation in the tunnel. Something few people saw, but many talked about. According to one staff member present, the exchange wasn't heated or awkward. It was genuine. What reportedly told Metcalf, "I get where you're coming from," while DK responded with, "Wouldn't expect you to play any other way." Those few words apparently carried the weight of mutual understanding. The kind that only two players who've lived through the chaos of the NFL could share. That quiet moment, in contrast to all the noise that preceded it, became almost legendary. It was proof that competition doesn't always breed hatred. Sometimes it forges respect in its rawest form. When a story leaked, fans reacted with admiration, calling it a real football moment, the kind that reminds everyone why they love the sport beyond the stats and sound bites. As weeks passed, the narrative evolved from controversy to legacy. Sports networks that once ran sensational headlines about Metcalf's attack on what began reframing the story as a powerful exchange between two leaders of the modern era. Analysts highlighted how both players handled the situation, with fire, yes, but also with maturity. Metcalf continued dominating defenses, while what remained a relentless force for Pittsburgh, racking up sacks and silencing anyone who doubted his control. But more importantly, the two became examples of how today's athletes navigate emotion, media pressure, and rivalry. In an age where one quote can become global controversy within minutes, their ability to shift the tone showed growth. Fans even began calling for a joint interview between the two, imagining a sit-down conversation where they'd reflect on how competition shapes identity. It was as if their brief conflict had matured into a masterclass on respect, redefining how the league and the audience sees conflict between greats. By the end of the season, the whole METCALF, what saga had transformed into one of the year's most iconic storylines. What started as a supposed feud ended as a celebration of intensity, honesty, and shared respect between two of the NFL's most dominant figures. Highlight reels began pairing clips of their best plays with quotes from their interviews, turning their once controversial exchange into a symbol of sportsmanship in its purest form. The league even used it in promotional videos, branding it as iron sharpens iron. And maybe that's the best way to describe it. Two forces colliding, not to destroy, but to make each other better. Metcalf's words had sparked debate, tension, and drama. But in the end, they revealed the essence of competition, that greatness recognizes greatness, even when it sounds like criticism. For both men, it wasn't just about football anymore. It was about legacy. And sometimes, the most powerful respect doesn't come from applause. It comes from the fire that burns between rivals who push each other to be legendary. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.